British ale yeast.
All right, who's doing what?
Oh, shit.
3, 2,
I'll do the third
1.
if you want.
I'll do the first one.
Got it?
Almost.
We're alive.
Welcome back to Come and Brew It Radio, coming to you from Texas Brewing Inc. in Haltom City, Texas. You can find us on the web at txbrewing.com and be sure to follow us on Facebook and share with your friends.
Woohoo! In this episode, we recap some of our experience at the 2018 Bluebonnet Brew Off, including content related to our Omega yeast saison experiment, and we get into the topic that always comes up around Bluebonnet, judging concerns. Plus, we'll sample some Tennessee beers and revisit our golden ale experiment with Brandon. Me. So pour a pint of your favorite beverage and enjoy the show.
Yeah. Before we get started, please be sure to check out our Patreon account to help support the show. Every little bit counts, and if you visit patreon.com/Come and Brew It Radio, we have a variety of options for you to help keep the show going, get involved, and improve it. And starting soon, at the end of each month, we'll be doing a monthly product giveaway for all our $5, $10, and $20 patrons.
Plus our weekly giveaway now. That wasn't in there. Yeah. We're doing a weekly giveaway. So everybody,
do you still have Patreon, all the names and stuff?
Yeah, where's the bag of names? It was on the table.
I hope it didn't get tossed.
Well, like we may have to come back in the second
Well, that's
half.
that's for the monthly. But for the weekly, you're going to be listening in for a keyword. It's already out there on Patreon right now, so go check that out and keep an ear out.
That's patreon.com/Come and Brew It Radio.
That's right.
So welcome to the show. I'm Brandon.
I'm Greg.
I'm Nigel.
Hello.
That's Stubby.
That was Stubby.
I'm Austin.
Austin Heiss over here from RAR.
We've got Austin for a special guest tonight.
All right. Yeah. Well, we haven't even started yet. I've already got 4 beers lined up in front of me. That's a pretty good start to the evening, I believe. So we're going to get into a lot of talk about the Bluebonnet Brew Off, which we've talked about several times on here. But for those of you that maybe knew or weren't paying attention, don't know what it is, that's our local homebrew competition, and it's billed as maybe is not the largest single site homebrew competition in the nation.
They're still advertising.
They still advertise it that way. It's close if it's not.
I heard it referenced during the competition by a certain judge that we've been discussing tonight.
It's over 1,500 entries.
Not this year. It was like 1,400, I think. It was
I thought it was like 1,525 or something. Oh, they didn't fill it out?
No,
really?
No, it didn't fill it out. Yeah.
It's a monumental project that's a source of great debate, both before, during, and after, but it always seems to come out being a great event.
Yeah. It's a hell of a lot of fun, and it was this
It always
year
makes
too.
me feel like crap the next day.
Yeah.
Or a week.
Yeah, a week. Yeah, it was a long week.
I think everybody's
really
still
rough.
recovering. I haven't met anybody yet that's been like a...
Well, and then I decided to go out and do the same thing on Wednesday night, so, you know. There you go.
Inevitably, what happens after these is the bitching about score sheets begins and that kind of thing.
Right.
I feel like now the conversation about score sheets is a lot different than what it used to be in the past, in that it's a little more legitimate. There's a little more substance to it, whereas before it was, I thought my beer was better than that, and why didn't it win?
Right.
Now people are qualified enough to know whether the beer was judged correctly, and so we're going to get into some of that and talk about some score sheets. The 2 that I co-entered with somebody, I was happy with my score sheets I got back, even the one that didn't do well, because it actually didn't do well for exactly the reason I thought it wasn't going to, and I knew it was going to get scored that way.
Did it show up in the score sheet, more or less?
Yeah, well, it's the same beer that we're going to do for this big brew that we're doing at my house in a couple weeks. The salted grapefruit saison. And I don't like... What are you doing, man?
Figuring out how to close a bottle.
Are you honestly trying to do that upside down?
There you go.
Swing tops are hard.
Dude, I hadn't used those in about 20 years, man.
So, but anytime I do a beer with additions like that, salt and grapefruit in particular, I like to keep them real subtle. I just like them to be a background note, and that's not a good plan for competition. So I knew it was going to run into that, and it did, and so that's fine. But at any rate, we'll get into some of these score sheets and what happened with that later.
Yeah, but let's get into the wins, because we had some of our guys win some impressive stuff, man.
Yeah,
shop wins.
Yeah, so I think this was a very difficult win for Nigel. I thought that was pretty cool because that hop was trash. I thought it was garbage.
Which hop was it again?
It was
Legacy.
Legacy hop.
Let's back that. Let's back the conversation up a little bit here. Every year we have some hops that are donated. It'll be an odd strain of hops or a breed of hops.
Usually something you don't want.
Something
but
that
not always.
you don't normally run into. Yeah, it's normally something that is not very well liked, to be honest with you, and that's probably the reason that we get them for free. And so we have a category based on showcasing just that hop. And so, Nigel,
I brewed a British Golden Ale, say with the Legacy hops, based on the description of the hops. And it turned out it was a really good beer, but everybody I gave it to say, hey, I'm not sure which best category this fits. Nobody could give me a real solid answer. So I threw it in as I brewed it into the British Golden Ale category and ended up with third in that category. So I was pretty happy with that.
very good.
Not easy. I mean, there's a lot of people putting in on that. So yeah.
Well, and we actually looked into the, purchasing some of that, outside of the Bluebonnet. And from what I understand, we looked everywhere, and it's just not available because they quit growing it. So
That explains it.
I would imagine that was probably 2015 crop year, if not older.
Yeah,
so
probably so.
They just didn't smell good. They didn't look good. I mean,
the
it
beer
was
he
just-
made was good.
The beer
That's a
was good,
plus,
yeah.
The beer was great.
It's very challenging to take a hop that you've never used before, never tasted, aren't familiar with at all, and just read a description of it, and the first time you brew a beer with it, enter it into a competition. I think I have a hard time. Hops in particular are tough for me with that. That's one of the reasons I stick to a lot of
Same.
traditional hops.
Yeah.
I use probably 5 or 6 in 90% of my beers.
Right.
For that reason. So that to me, that's a big win because I think that's difficult to do, to take something.
Well, last year was Cluster, and I think Legacy was probably a little more flavorful on a whole than than Cluster was.
And the year before that was Belma.
Oh, Belma.
And I
horrible.
judged some of those
Yeah.
beers, and what an awful hop that is. I
It
mean,
is
It's just
truly not.
Oh man! But
And it's
you
just
talk
like,
to some
thanks for the
people that
trash.
like it, man. They're
I was going to say,
all over it.
I listened to the Turning Point episode this
Yeah.
week,
Yeah,
and,
they
and
were
they
on
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I hadn't seen any over there yet, so I don't know. I mean,
Well, the way
but
you
anyway.
use a hop can drastically change what you get out of it.
Yeah.
So, they might be using it in a very different way and thus getting a lot of different flavors and characteristics out of it.
Yeah, well, they talked a lot about dry hopping while fermentation is active and the biotransformation that
Right.
happens with it there. And that is a very floral hop, so it might have a high, geraniol.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that
Yeah.
they would like it then.
It
for
smells
that
like
purpose.
smells like weed.
Right, yeah.
Not like
Well,
weed, like pot, like
Yeah.
You
Did
cut
you
your
say
grass.
weed? Oh.
Something on the-
Yeah, that's the diggity dank flavor.
I keep thinking about Stan made a cream ale with Belma. And it ended up sitting at. It just got really hot. And we kept drinking it though, So it was a weird flavored
I had-
beverage.
It's a true lawnmower beer.
Yeah,
Like you actually
exactly,
you actually put your grass clippings in there.
exactly. Yeah.
I had some really bad beers from that hop, and it wasn't that the beers themselves were bad. It was that hop. I thought the flavor from it
I
was
wasn't
terrible.
a big fan. It's fun to try to do something with that though, and it's like again, Nigel also put that golden ale in another category, and it was kind of
It
fun
bombed.
to see it come back. Yeah, it didn't do so well in
Yeah.
the actual golden ale, but then we also know what golden ales taste
Well,
like.
yeah,
now,
that's the thing
and I don't
is-
think those judges even know.
Yeah, that's a very dicey category to enter at all because how many of the judges have ever actually had one?
Right.
From reading.
You know.
Especially when you get one of the judges judge it in the Golden Ale category and keep mentioning the Hop Showcase category in his judging sheet. But
This
that-
is not a hop showcase of a beer. What?
Yeah, I don't know how that got.
How-
One of
how'd that
those
happen?
those things got screwed up or something, man.
some it did, but hey, it ended up
Yeah,
with third
things
place.
happen,
so
right.
Yeah, can't complain
no,
about
that's
that.
right. It might have been something different, and
We
that
walked
didn't go
away
through.
with some hardware.
Yep.
So another one of our local superstars here, Jeremy Sanders.
Yeah, he was on the episode a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill's
And
man.
Pilsners.
talking about the Pilsners, which I was absolutely mind-boggled and shocked that Pilsner didn't win.
Well,
But the
knowing
hell-
what I know about how the judging ended up having
Yeah.
to be done, I'm not surprised at all.
But anyway, he did win with his Helles that we drank that
Yeah,
night
Helles.
on the
fantastic.
Out of this world,
Yeah.
yeah.
Got a
So he
third.
won for Helles, he won for Best Bitter, he won
Second.
for Ordinary Bitter,
Third.
and for Imperial Stout.
Second.
So that's an impressive showing there. 4
Yeah.
medals.
Yeah.
2/3, 2 seconds.
I'm going to start asking him how to brew bitters from now on.
Yeah, and the funny thing was the poor guy, he didn't get a first. He hit all around it though, didn't he?
Yeah, I did.
He was weighed down that night, though. He was pretty happy.
I don't know. I'd sure like to taste the Pilsners that beat him out, because that Pilsner of his that he brought in was
stellar.
As close to a 50-point beer as I've ever had.
It was fantastic. I was shocked.
There wasn't a single flaw that I could pick out in it.
It must have been a hard category.
Or he got a bad bottle or something, or draw or something.
Judge.
Yeah, a bad draw. It's just like it's kind of like when you're a cowboy, sometimes you get a bad draw.
Well, I'm sure it's a crowded
sometimes
category.
you get a crappy bull, Same thing with judges.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a bad draw.
So Greg won some stuff too, and Stubby won some stuff too. I don't know if we want to talk about that. But
Yeah, who cares?
These guys are assholes.
Greg, talk about the ones you won with, and then I'll talk about the ones that I won with.
I got a second
rub
for
it in
American
more.
Porter, which I can also say congratulations to Nigel over here, because that was our Iron Mash beer. So
Yes, it
that was
was.
our Iron Mash beer, American Porter with molasses, but we didn't reference the molasses. I just put it in because I thought it tasted
smart.
like a solid, robust
Right.
American Porter, And then a third place for specialty wood-aged beer, which was our Riverside beer.
Man,
and
that
that was
beer
Pete's
was
submission.
freaking fantastic.
But our beer from mine, Pete, and Nigel.
Yeah, that was
So-
fantastic. It
That
was
was
really good.
Imperial American Brown with coconut
right?
and rum-soaked oak.
Yeah, man, it was awesome.
Yeah,
I
so
love that beer.
both those beers.
So
I
you
put
brought
in-
that tonight to taste, right?
I think it's
long
gone.
gone.
Long
Yeah, long gone.
Passed away many
Long
moons
gone.
ago.
I put both those beers into different categories, and they did nothing. So just another example of going to show you cannot squeeze beers into categories you think they could fit in.
Right.
You need to put them in where they should be.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a hard lesson for newer brewers and people first entering competition to learn, is not to enter it in what you set out to brew, and enter it into what it actually turned out
Fits.
to be. And you really need to sit down and maybe even fill out a score sheet on your own beer to tell, because you have it in your mind already. This is what I think this beer is. And
A lot of times I see people that get married to beers. And,
Yeah,
and what
absolutely.
I mean to that is they worked hard on it. They've kept it for a long time. And there's an old saying, you can't polish a turd. I mean, if it's a turd, it's always going to be a turd. It's not going to get better with age, I mean, and so
here, I'll open this ahead of
I think a lot of times
You need to close it.
Close it for him as well, please.
He can open them. He can't
But I think a
close
lot
them.
of times, people, and they're really shocked that this beer is not that good, and it really isn't that good. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you can make a really good beer, and it doesn't do well. But
I think he's talking about more that just it might be a different style. Like it's still good beer, but it's just more
Right.
applicable in a different style.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a lot of those going in. And that's what we did when we get to what Stubby had.
yeah,
His
so,
win is part of the reason that we have that discussion.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about this, but I wouldn't say but I would say more of we won a first place with the Omega Saison.
Saisonstein's Monster
with the
Saison.
Saisonstein Monster, which
If you watch our Learn to Homebrew Day video,
Yeah.
it's that beer.
yeah, and we just stuck all these in a bucket and left them in here for. Well, actually, we did temperature control on that one.
Yeah, that one was, we cared about that one.
Yeah, but it's still.
Let me say we cared for that one.
Well, I don't know, man. We left it in there for 4 months in the fermenter in a bucket. So
Nah, it wasn't that long, but yeah, we
That's
left it
called
in there for a
lagering.
while. It was under control, whereas like all the wild versions were
Yeah, we
not.
just left it room
So,
temperature.
Yeah,
But anyhow,
first place
So first place. This is the fun thing.
of the
and I
saison
always-
category.
Always love to do this. That was a big category this year.
Yeah,
Did you see how
yeah,
many
it
people
was.
There was like 60 entries, I
Yes,
think.
exactly.
So that's a pretty amazing a feat. But one of the things that Greg and I did with these Omegas, because we really wanted to get a lot of feedback, is we wanted to put them in, and we both put them in as our own, just to kind of see the difference in the
Right.
scores that we would get back.
Right.
And lo and behold, this one won first place, and Greg's didn't do shit. So
Yeah. His
it didn't
one-
even make it out of the first round.
No,
right?
it didn't. His one, you got. Let me see. Is this
The score sheets in the first round for this one wasn't really good.
Try to find it. Oh my gosh, Belgian Dark Strong.
Yeah, see if you can find that one, because I think
Yeah,
that
I'll
one's
go.
interesting. But no, it's always fun to kind of see. And you know what? The rest of our beers that we entered, those other 3 funky beers that we entered, I
They
didn't
did
think
really well.
They did really well, and I don't think there was that big a disparity in the scores. Would you say?
No.
I would say they're all in the high 30s and the 40s. For you guys that's never entered entered a beer competition, a 50 is kind of like a 50 is kind of like a perfect 10 in gymnastics. It really doesn't happen. You know, it's kind of an unattainable thing. So if you're scoring a 42 to 45, you're scoring. You know, you're knocking it out of the ballpark typically. So. I think this beer, the saison that we had, that we won with, I think it was really it didn't score extremely high. It just made it into the second round. So
basically, you had this was the first round score sheets. It was all we had this year because they did some unusual different.
They did best of show judging for the entire second round. There were no score sheets or anything.
Many of us
I
are
don't
not
like
on
that.
agreement with,
Yeah.
but it was one of those things where
I think it boiled down to not enough judges.
that's what I think too, because they did it in one place instead of spreading it out.
Yeah,
Well, that place was not ideally located either. I mean,
right. It's a long ways for especially Fort Worth people.
But you got to think about first place versus no place, same exact beer.
Okay,
Exactly
explain to
bottled.
them. Do you remember what the grain bill was?
It's a
mostly
really
Pilsner
basic
malt.
grain bill. Yeah, it's mostly pills, a little bit of wheat. I had some spelt and some flaked oats
I
and
think a caramel 20 or something, like a little bit.
it may have a little bit of that, but mostly I threw
flaked
some more.
oats, huh?
Yeah, flaked. I put in wheat and I
Well-
put a little bit more in because we knew that we were going to throw bugs in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this we made this one
Or
clean. But
bread
Okay.
in.
So you wanted something for the bread to chew
Yeah, I
on.
wanted something to
Okay.
chew on. I mean, I made it up. I made that beer up basically the day of Learn to Homebrew Day, just thinking this is something that we're going to base it off of and see give them something to eat to find out what they're going to do, you know. Well, out of Stubby's score sheet was he had a 38 out of 50 and a 34 out of 50,
yeah, that's
which
not
averaged
much.
out to what, like 36 something?
Yeah.
About.
Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, that was first round. So it made it in the second round. In the second round, it obviously did better. We don't have results for that. I can't think of it. Must have been 40 something in the second round, based off of what those scores must have been.
Well, there were no scores.
Yeah, I
for
think
second round.
they just pool tested.
They
them
did
and-
it best of show. So if there were, for instance, I know there was one category that y'all had beers in that the second round was 17 beers, and they did them all in a best of show format.
All at one time?
Yeah.
That's just dumb.
17 in a row.
Belgian Dark Strong.
Even worse.
17 of them in a
Whoa.
best of show format.
Oh, my God.
Okay. So there were no score sheets. There were no scores given or
Okay.
anything. It was just, let's taste all these. Okay, get rid of these. All these beers have no business being here.
So now you're going to
let's
tell
test-
me you
let's
voted
taste
for the
these
one
beers.
over the number 2 now, right?
Well, I did not do this. I
Yeah,
only
he wasn't
judged.
there.
I only judged first round. I just have knowledge
Okay,
of how
okay,
it was
okay.
done.
But he would have
So
done.
Again, you're still talking 36, and it made it forward. And mine got a 26 and a 29. And that's a total difference of, like, they're just complaining one way and the other one's basically describing it very drinkable, this, that, and everything was
Right.
great. And still, you're talking about very comparable judges as well. as
So
far as
here's
this
the thing
goes.
about this is the disparity in scores is a whole different conversation in my mind. And when you enter a competition, you have to expect that.
Yeah.
And two judges sat at the table and both came up with the lower scores, as where two judges sat at the table and both came up with the higher scores.
Yeah, but sometimes there's
So-
a dominating person.
Well, you're right about that. Yeah. But so that's a different conversation, and that's just
naming any
the
names.
nature of the beast. That's just what it is. What I have an issue with on these is if you read over the lower score sheets, the ones that they gave it to you in the 20s, one of them looks like a chicken walked across the page with ink on his
Yes,
feet.
yes.
There are arrows pointing from one section to another. It's so
man.
scribbly you can't barely even make anything out.
I didn't see that.
And then the second one is very, very dry and clinical. It's just a list of things that the judge perceived, which is great. That's the first part of it. But the other,
Yeah.
you like that? It's like a treasure map.
Yeah,
Well,
there's all
and-
sorts of things going
And the
on.
the
sad
arrows
thing
and-
is this rank as a national.
Not only is his rank a national, he has an insane amount of judging experience.
Yeah.
More than the vast majority of judges in the entire country.
Right.
So there have arrows drawing on a score sheet to me is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Get another sheet. If anything,
Or
this is a flow chart.
You would think having filled out as many score sheets as this person probably has, they would remember that the first one is aroma and not flavor, and not write it backwards and then have to write arrows pointing to where things go. That's absolutely ridiculous to me.
It's a flow chart.
Right. It is, yeah. And then the second sheet, it lists what he perceives in the beer, and that's it. And then gives you a 26 on it. No indication at all of why the score was given.
Well,
Right.
what was he indicating? Like, were the flavors correct for style and things like that?
Where's the other one, Greg?
They're all right there.
Well, I wonder if we just he didn't just get a bad bottle too, because it says needs carbonation.
Yeah, that's always my first inclination. Is if you have the exact same beer and you're confident in your process that it's the same, and yes, it might be different people, but if they're getting drastically different things, then
where's mine?
Maybe it's just a bad bottle or can.
But
here's the one I'm talking about. So aroma is fruity aroma, low malt with some hop aroma, spicy, orange. Appearance is SRM 7 clear, copper yellow, low off white.
That may
head.
be it right there.
All of that stuff. So
if you look at mine, it says light, medium body, warm, effervescent. Effervescent.
Yeah, this says medium carbonation on
right,
it.
But don't they share the same bottle?
Oh, this one says needs carbonation.
These are two different sets of judges.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So overall impression, he wrote spicy, sweet, orange, no hop evident, low attenuation, spicy finish, lacks dry finish for style.
Part.
The only thing on here that has any reference to why the score is what it is this last part. Lacks dry finish for style. 26 out of 50. So there's absolutely no information on here for the brewer to change.
Well, it sounds like he's saying it has a sweet finish.
Yeah.
So, in his opinion, it's under attenuated. So,
well, yeah, but we have to draw that conclusion in the overall
that's
impression.
what
You should be telling the person.
It doesn't have any hop aroma.
Yeah,
it doesn't finish.
Well, it shouldn't have any hop aroma. That's the thing.
Well, but that's what I guess he feels it should have more maltiness than hoppiness.
And this one, honestly, the one that got it to the second round, it does say great potential, needs to be finished drier.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, funny thing about that beer too is that it
was
was super
dry.
attenuated.
Yeah. Well,
the
only thing that I maybe think that maybe what they're picking up on is because we did have all the flake stuff in there.
Yeah.
So it may have given it a little more body.
Right.
So they're just perceiving that as not being dry.
I remember it being pretty dry, but I also didn't sit down and judge it either. Right. So
we're going to drink it here in a few minutes. So.
Right. But I guess my overall point on this is having a problem with the score is one thing. That's a debatable issue. It's very subjective, that kind of thing. But a very poorly filled out score sheet by two extremely experienced judges is very disappointing. When you've gone through all the trouble to brew the beer and package it and pay the entry fee and all that stuff.
I mean, come on, there's so much to
do.
do.
It is what it is.
Well, they were, and you don't know if that was the fourth flight they were judging that day or whatever.
They're ready to pull their nuts out, Brandon. That's good.
Oh, no.
That's for the
we haven't gotten to that part of the evening.
Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't. Okay.
And that's it. I mean, let's not come across as people that, after the competition
sour grapes.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't just
we had a
right,
great
exactly.
competition. I think the point...
It's just funny.
It is. The point that came over to me from my score sheets was the inconsistencies, but from judge to judge, especially when they're judging the same beer. We spoke about it earlier, Greg, but we had a beer in the spice herb vegetable category where one judge said the spices, the vanilla and the coconut and the rum dominated the beer, and the other judge that judged the same beer said he didn't detect any of them.
Are we going to let that go?
That's
no,
vanilla.
that is
no. But what I'm
that's what you should expect out of that category, though. It really is.
What I'm pointing out is the inconsistencies and the lack of conversation between the two judges.
Yeah, that is kind of an unusual thing. You would think that at some point at the table, like, I'm getting this. Okay, well, I'm just going to write whatever the hell I want to write down and not discuss this at all.
And I would say this. I've had this happen. I won a Stein one time at Bluebonnet with the ESB. And back in the old days, you could double enter.
Right.
So you could put more of the same beer more than once into the same category. And that was before we had, 1,600 entries or whatever. And I had the exact same thing happen. I mean, it got trashed. One of them got trashed in the first round, and the second round, one of them made it through and won the first place. So I think you have to look at it too. I think there's a lot to do with which beers and what order it gets judged in, and
And packaging is definitely an issue.
what beers you have in the same flight. I just think there's a big difference there.
Well, and it goes to the familiarity with the style that we talked about too. We talked a lot about that when Nigel's brought these English beers, and how much better I would be at judging English beers now than I would be 6 months ago.
Right.
And before I had a chance, and that can go a long way, because if you haven't ever had experience drinking commercial examples of a particular style, and you're just going off the score sheet, or the guidelines.
Yeah, for golden nails? Shit.
Yeah. There's several styles like that just.
Well, and then also moving on, I did win second place with that quad finally.
Yes.
After 2.5 years, it was finally good enough to win something.
It's a ridiculously good beer.
Whoa.
That was your positive ding.
Oh, okay.
That's all you get, buddy.
But no, it was really good, and I liked it a lot, and I would just always thought it deserved something.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's an absolutely fantastic
Thank God it was my last 3 bottles, because if I would have put it in there and it didn't win again, I would have been pissed, because I would rather have drank it.
Yeah, exactly. Wasted.
Brew it again, and you should be good for.
What's that?
I'm sorry. Brew it again, and should be good for 2021.
Yeah, there you go. It was only
dark
almost
strong.
Yeah,
it was a dark strong.
Yeah.
It was only almost like 17% alcohol.
So he got a second place.
Was it really that high?
The 17 beer
Wow.
second.
I thought, was it the Dragon de Oro?
Well, that's what we called it.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering if that was like a Golden Drop clone.
Oh, so that wasn't the Westy clone?
That was the Westy clone.
Oh, it was a Westy clone. Okay, all right.
He may have named it.
I just named it
similarly.
Yeah.
Just an awesome recipe.
Yeah,
Nice and
it
simple.
was.
It really was good.
And I think actually we may end up making that as a kit, because it's just simple and easy.
Yeah.
And
it works
expensive
really
kit,
well.
but
yeah.
But when you look at
it's
buying,
literally a gold medal winning kit.
Yeah,
that's right. When you look at buying that type of beer by the bottle, it could be an expensive kit and still be a fantastic bargain.
Yeah, and I think
who homebrews because it's cheaper.
Well, but that's one of the things that Stubby brought
That
up.
quickly goes by the wayside.
See, now I argue that point though, because I always liken it to your kitchen. If you took into account the cost of your refrigerator and your stove and all that shit every time you cooked, it would seem like it'd be really expensive to cook at home. When it's not, I think the same thing's true with home brewing. I'm not going to take the cost of my system into account.
You do it because it's fun,
right?
Not good, like.
But I think it also is less expensive once
you get the results you want out of it. Is the best thing about homebrewing.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of like, I do know some homebrewers that they brew because it is cheap and they can make a lot of the one thing that they make again and again, and that's all they want to drink. So, I mean. And that works,
which is
but
a great
most
thing.
of us aren't
That's
that
great.
way. That's just we have one of those, and a whole bunch of others that we really put a lot of money into for the hell of it. So that's a hobby, right?
So then I guess
like cooking.
The last thing would be that our former producer won the award for reddest nutsack at the.
Yeah, that's true.
Wait, is this what's going to befall the producers of the show? Is that what?
Well, I guess that's entirely up to you.
Is that what's
keep
happening?
your balls to yourself?
Well, hang on. Wait, can you?
We're gonna have to paint over the window.
No,
stop.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a long evening on Saturday night after the homebrew tasting of Zach with his angry red nut sack.
Zach the Sack,
Just
I think
out.
is what we're calling.
Yeah,
Just
Zach
out.
Sack.
It was
Just
hanging out. It was at the party.
I was like, is that actually real? That looks so angry and red. What's wrong with you? But
Well, at least draw a face on it or something.
yeah, he should
come
have
on.
put a happy face.
Put a little
on it.
beard or.
Yeah, he was everywhere with it though. We're like, okay.
He was proud of
There's
it.
a lot of pictures of it.
There
There's
are a lot,
Yeah.
and we all saw way too many of them.
I didn't see any of it live.
No, me neither.
And
That's
I
good.
saw it.
That's a good thing.
I
Yeah.
count that as a win.
And then they start posting it on the freaking stupid text thing. I'm like, Jesus, stop,
group
dude.
chats.
Stop. Stop! I don't want to see it anymore.
It took like 5 pictures before I realized what I was looking at. Like, why do they keep sending all these pictures of Zach just
Why is he
standing
holding
there?
a puppy brain next to his... I don't get it.
Why does Matt Westlake have eyeliner on?
Why doesn't he?
Yeah, see, that's
question.
Whoa.
that's the disturbing one. Is the
While he's
the close up
leaning
with
in
Westlake.
really close to it.
Yes.
Angry red nuts.
Don't forget about the gold
Dude.
lipstick.
Yeah, he had lipstick
The
on
lipstick
first.
too. Yeah.
No, he put the eyeshadow on first. I watched him.
Eyeshadow.
Or
Did
eyeliner
the
or whatever
lipstick
it was.
gradually wear off and the
Yeah.
balls begin to take on a golden hue?
The
Or?
reddish. That's where the red came from. Okay,
Oh,
now
my
we're
goodness.
in the realm
Different
of
range.
Yeah, that's right. We've
defamation,
entered
so-
second half territory now. But
You know,
anyway, I thought I had to bring that
out
up.
of all the weirdest things that usually happen at Bluebonnet and things that typically there are stories and whatnot, that's I think Zach doing his
Zach was the
scrotum
winner.
show is probably the weirdest thing that I can
I don't
think
know.
of.
He
offhand.
had one a couple years ago where he sent us a
Well,
picture.
I know,
with
but I'm talking
his
about this
junk
year.
in a stein.
I didn't hear anything else this year about anybody doing anything.
least
Well,
we didn't see his
Westlake
junk.
kept it tame, right? He kept his shirt on. and-
Yeah.
No.
halfway.
Somewhat.
somewhat.
He
Sort
made a
of.
halfie. You didn't see that?
I've got
This year?
pictures to prove
Yeah.
he didn't.
Crop top.
crop top
Yeah,
with the sparkly cap and hair. Freaking.
he made that. At
Dude,
home.
that shirt was awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he made
And
it
you
at home.
know it.
I'll find a picture for you. Brian.
Yeah, I need to see a picture of that.
Which there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, by the way.
I just thought it was weird that
Seinfeld rules in here, you guys.
That's right.
Nothing
Not that
wrong
there's
with
anything wrong with that. Yeah.
it's one of those things where we're staying at a hotel, and I'm not hearing any stories. I mean,
Right.
years past, Brandon went last year. He didn't get to go this year, and he came back to a room where he thought there had been some horrible murder or something.
No,
you
an
know?
abortion. I thought an abortion had taken place. Yeah. Yeah, I went into the bathroom of my hotel room, and my friend was sharing the room with me, and he had gotten a rip-roaring start to the evening and ended up ending it early, and so he was already in bed. And I went in the bathroom, and there, laying on the counter, are 3 items: a bent-up coat hanger, a pocket knife covered in blood, and a towel covered in blood. And I'm like, what the hell happened in here?
Somebody lost their kidneys.
Yeah, it was something like that. But but that okay. So he's got the half shirt, but he's got a shirt on underneath.
Yeah,
it.
but that
was for that
shirt,
picture.
yeah, the
What, do we
shirt
have
on
a picture?
underneath.
Nigel?
Yeah, Randy
There we go.
Valdez,
Get
Randy
that?
Valdez said, "Had fun hanging with you
All
guys,
right.
minus the balls."
Yeah. Thanks, Randy. Yeah. Nobody really appreciated the balls. The balls just kind of just came out suddenly and didn't go back
I
for
know,
a long
right,
time.
right.
That's about the same time I think that I was like, I'm going to
Somebody
get
should
my ride
have just
home.
slapped him, dude. Slapped it.
Oh, they probably got slapped. Well, as angry as they look, they've probably been kicked, slapped, beaten. I don't know. Maybe set fire to. I'm not sure. But, God, they look angry and red.
All right.
No, but
So-
I would like to do a shout out to the CIA or the Cane Island Ailers.
Yeah,
Man, they
yeah.
cleaned up this year.
You guys
did.
kicked
They did
ass.
great.
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
They
They're
won
from down
that.
in Houston, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
Katie.
Katie, that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, right outside Houston.
You guys had a theme song.
Yes, they
You're
did.
Yeah.
pretty much it.
Oh
They had
my
a
God.
theme song?
Every time
Yeah.
they won a gold medal,
Every time.
Secret Agent Men played.
Oh, that's too good.
Yeah, but just them.
They had a lot
Nobody
of
else
secret
had
agent
any theme
men.
No,
songs.
we actually had one.
It's because they're the CIA.
We had the Johnny Red brewing up a batch of the blues or something.
Oh, really? There you go.
Didn't
But
know
we
that.
only won like 3.
I
so,
could say I didn't hear that one.
That wasn't
That wasn't it.
it. Red Knight's going down.
That's right. Red Knight's going down. Down, down, down.
Yeah, we were trying to come up with parodies earlier, but we'll tell you at halftime. It's fun.
All right.
Nobody else would
Anyway.
understand it.
So who did any beer work this week? Because I did not do any other than look at 2 fermenters that both need to be kegged.
I did lots of
Sometime I need to
I
get
did lots of beer work Wednesday.
Yeah, but that was mainly consuming.
It was just like lifting them into my mouth.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah, I've
Did,
done some of that this week.
We started a kettle sour this afternoon.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it's for Martin House's Riverside. I'm just going to F
Yeah,
off and do
yeah.
weird shit. It's going to be weird shit.
So
we
how-
always had
Except
fun.
for that, I've already found it exists in other places. So I was like, well,
So
brute
how is that
consciousness and brewing, I guess.
How's that going to work to do a kettle sour for the shootout? Because you have to do that on site.
Well, it's a practice. It was a test.
practicing.
What's
test
on
batch.
site? It all goes home after the fact. So as long as
Well-
they can do it, they'll do it. Whatever. If
Also,
we
That's-
do that.
That's one of the things I've always thought about that competition is I'm not sure I understand why it has to be brewed on site. because it's your own recipe.
It's camaraderie.
Yeah, it's a
for
pain in
fun
the
and
ass.
games.
is
It's a
what
pain
it
in the
is.
ass. You're right.
Yeah.
It's so that they can provide ingredients.
That's why
if
I
they
quit
need to.
doing it, because I was sick of dragging
That's
all my
exactly.
shit out there. Yeah.
I'm
I
totally
hear you.
with you, Brandon, because I did the first 2 shootouts, and I was like, "Oh man, this is going to be something
Yeah.
I regularly do." But after dragging my, whole system out there, setting it up, and then having to battle the wind because the wind coming off the river right there is brutal, and trying to keep a flame going, it's insane. So I just kind of gave up.
Then don't eat burritos.
Well, and
the night before.
I'd like to give a shout out too. That we always have a good time hanging out with. They were actually next to us this year. Is the Big Country Homebrewers out in Abilene. They're always a fun group to hang out with. They did pretty well this year too. So, cheers to them.
Yeah, one of these days I want to hang out with those guys with you. It seems like every time I'm not
we have a
great.
good time.
around. Yeah.
Great group.
I know Jeremy's watching, so cheers.
What's up, Jeremy?
Maybe we could,
We're
for a
gonna make some shit
future,
happen in Abilene.
What's up, dude?
maybe for a future episode, we could muse a little bit over what would make homebrew competitions at, for different breweries, different competitions.
Better.
Yeah, more. Well, more attuned to how the homebrewer actually lives.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, I get you.
Well, with the Iron Mash, where
That's a good
you
competition.
do have to. That's a great competition. I enjoy it every year, and you do have to drag all your shit out to that. But there's a reason to drag all your shit out to that, because you're not going to get the ingredient. You're not going to have any idea what it is until that morning it's given out. So you have to be there and brew it on site. That I understand.
Or
With
you
Martin
could get
House,
the ingredients and have to brew with them at home.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of a.
I mean, I get it too.
The
I get it.
surprise of the ingredients is
Yeah, you're
the
right.
competition.
I get it.
Yeah,
well, and
concept.
the time constraints too. You have to come up with a recipe in like
now.
20 minutes or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
There are elements
You
to that.
can't do
that-
test batches and stuff like
Right,
that.
exactly.
Even though if you wanted to cheat, you can go home and freaking rebrew it
And
if
I'm
you
not.
wanted to.
Right.
That's not what
Yeah,
I'm
we
getting
do do
into.
it on the honor
I'm not
system.
talking about cheating or getting any kind of real edge where you do things.
Well, you
that-
know what I did this year? I actually took West Veteran and actually put it in my bottle and put it in Bluebonnet. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, nice.
You know
Well, you
what?
can do
If
what you want in
listed that
Bluebonnet.
trouble and expense, and then you deserve the
To
award.
give
yeah.
somebody else the quality beer, right?
Well, I always used to want to do that when I was still
Yeah.
homebrewing, was take a commercial beer and just take the label off and submit it and see what the judges said.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
been
just-
done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know somebody who's done it.
I
Did,
imagine.
did it get a
What were
good
the Sierra
score?
Nevada? You'd have to
Did
do
it
a
get a
Sierra
good
Nevada.
score? Did it
No,
get
no,
ripped
none
or
of
what?
them- none of them made it.
Yeah.
They were entered anonymously, and no, none of them made it. And you probably know who did this.
Nice.
You have any? You wouldn't know who it is.
Probably.
But anyway.
We're
Was it
blowing the
cheese
lid
study?
off this
But
homebrew
no,
competition.
he was gonna if they actually made it through the second round, he was gonna pull them, but they never made it to the second round.
Is that Clint?
No.
No. Okay,
No.
that seems like a Clint.
He's not going to say it here.
Is it
No,
Red
I'm not
Balls?
gonna say.
Was it
Was
you,
it Red
Stubby?
Balls?
No,
That's
but
all I need to know.
it makes sense. Yeah. This shit happens with judging.
Anyway, do we have a segment? Another segment? Do we not have the Reddit thing?
I
Yeah,
have
we
the
have
Reddit on. I have one on
unsolicited
here.
answers to Reddit questions.
Do we
So
have a
we've got
bumper for that?
We've got one on here.
Dear God.
That's a short bumper there.
That was pretty good, right? Yeah.
All right, so oh, who broke something?
That's not a good bumper.
Okay, so unsolicited answers to Reddit questions.
Is it possible for a beer to change color after bottling?
Yes.
Basically, say my partner and I feeling a little crazy because we both swear our beer was much lighter, more yellow than this, more yellow because this was a Northeast IPA attempt than we were bottling it, versus now when we pour it from the conditioned bottles, which is now more copper colored.
Yeah, there's a couple things
Yes.
that could cause this. First off, particulate, if it's flocked out,
Right.
it could look darker than it was originally, right? And the second thing is probably oxidation.
Oxidation, especially in this style. This
Yeah,
style
yeah.
definitely changes quickly depending on
So
oxygen
typically,
contact.
yeah, a lot of times if I have like a light color beer in my carboy and then I come back 2 or 3 weeks later and I notice it's really dark, I usually will toss it because that
It's
usually
not going to taste good either.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
typically somehow along the way it got oxidized.
Right.
Your airlock dried out, or
You might have had a sudden temperature change that really pulled a lot of oxygen into the container, which then absorbed and totally changed the appearance.
Well, and that's the thing.
Flavor.
I had one recently do that. We brewed 10 gallons, and we ended up with maybe 4 gallons each for fermenters, and I mean,
so you got a lot of space.
It had, and I put in one of those seven gallon for monsters or whatever, and lo and behold, man, I came back 2 weeks and that shit was brown almost.
Yeah,
I just threw it away.
I had one that I left in the garage one time, hoping for the heat to help, but I think the heat actually drew in a bunch of oxygen. In about a week and a half, it totally changed color, and then I kept leaving it just to see, thinking that a week and a half is not long enough. It tasted horrible. Horrible, and I was just trying to push up some of the
Are
you boosting this? I was trying to push up some of the like
daisies
for the bacteria and whatnot that were in it, because it was a sour, so I was trying to get it to do something. This was back when we were trying, I think, the Black Man dried powdered yeast or whatever, so and it was one of those things, but I totally ruined it because of the temperature variance of a Texas summer garage going up and down.
We need to have Barrett back on.
Yeah,
I think he's got some exciting news to talk about.
So. Yeah,
I always like Evan Barrett. He's a really cool guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And so, and even that happened with us one time with that. Well, remember we did that? We used the BE 256 for the first time, and we had those golden ales sitting in there forever.
Yes,
they got brown.
They were no longer golden by the end of that.
We just tossed them. So, that's probably where that came from, I would think.
But that definitely happens. And a style like the Northeast IPA or the New England IPA, whatever, any IPA, not any, but, well, you know what I mean.
New England IPA.
Any IPA.
Basically, what you want to have with that is like they're very oxygen sensitive. It's totally
like the letter
N,
the letter E, not N-E.
N and
like
the letter E.
A-N-Y.
Letter N, letter E, IPA.
Northeast?
Letter N.
New England. I don't want to hear that, dude. Sorry. I hear enough of that every day.
You're right. I know you do.
Naked eel.
But yeah, they definitely are very sensitive to that. But any beer is, right? So, Austin, do you have anything to say about oxidation of beer and a short term and
right
the effect on the color?
Long term, man.
Long term is horrible. But
especially with stuff with a lot of hops, man.
Yeah.
It'll destroy your beer much faster than you think, and if you think you've purged a keg or a bottle, do it over again. Maybe even 3 or 4 times. Like our process that we used to do back in the day before we got a DO meter or an oxygen, like in the air meter, dissolved oxygen is liquid. Before we got to measure the air and oxygen in the air, we did a process where we thought we were doing it great. The beers tasted good, but
3 months later or 4 months later?
Yeah, they would quickly deteriorate, but it was more like once we got the machine that would like give us a number, we did our process and it was like, wow, this is really, really high. And so we started, experimenting with different processes and kind of nailed it down. One to give us one that would like give us like actual like really good levels where we'd only get, like less than 10 ppb dissolved oxygen at the end.
Right.
Whereas before, it was just like, we thought we had a good process. It wasn't. We were able to check it in the machine, and it wasn't. So it's kind of one of those things like you think you've got a great process, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. So, just like that's just one of the things. Oxygen, I'm super paranoid about. Right. You can't purge things enough. You can't take enough precautions. They will destroy your beer. If you've got fittings or seals on something you're storing, tighten them down. Those are real bad for leakage. That's one of the things with barrels is, it's micro oxidation of low terms. So you got to keep them topped up so that they don't dry out and let in air. That's definitely, I think, the number one. One of the
I personally think that is
brewers.
one of the big pitfalls of homebrewers trying to brew IPAs too.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things that's very difficult to control on a homebrew level. Your oxygen uptake, and it really causes a steep drop off in hop character
rapidly,
very quickly. Yeah.
You know what, Brandon? You know what actually helps that? I just
bottle conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah, it will. It does help.
Yeah.
If the beer had it in the first place, though, it's gone. It's done.
But also with bottle conditioning, you're going to leave a hoppy beer warm for 3 weeks too. So
in that sense, the oxidation mostly occurs in packaging. So during fermentation or during boiling, you've driven off all the oxygen. During fermentation, the yeast will partake the oxygen, chew it up, and they're doing its own thing. It's pushing it out. So any post-fermentation transfers, packaging, anything you do to it, that's when you pick up oxygen. So that's when you need to be really careful about make sure you don't.
I guess the point I was making, too, is a lot of guys, if they don't do bottle conditioning and they have bottles, they're going to be putting it in with some sort of, bottle filler.
Well, that's why bottle conditioning helps prevent oxidation, because it's kind of like a repeat of the fermentation stage where the yeast is there to actually uptake the oxygen and keep it out of the product.
Exactly. And I mean, even like people, and we've talked about this many times before, that's why, I think, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale still does it that way.
Right.
But they've got it down to a perfect art where it's like a paper thin layer. I don't think most people even realize that
they're
it's
bottle
conditioned, but it's a shelf life thing for them. And
the problem is when they do it in the cans. I have a problem with them doing it in the can.
Yeah,
because those 12 packs of cans they lay on there. Yeah, I don't like it.
Where
in the can.
Where else are you going to do it?
I've had bad experiences with it in the can.
Hey man, you know what? And we did an experiment, and nobody could tell the difference.
But I'm talking about those cans are laying on their side, so the yeast is on the side, and then you're going to tip it upwards and open it, and you're going to get that yeast into suspension.
It's not going to be as clear. And
well, it's funny though, because I always thought that. I was always like, man, it tastes better in the bottle than it does in the can. So we did that experiment. We actually, what do we? Yeah, we had.
What if you drink a bottle in the can? Go in the can and drink a bottle.
Okay.
You don't drink beer on the toilet?
Oh.
Sort of like a shower beer?
Shower beer.
Right, yeah.
But no, we actually did it. We actually
hit about that hard,
Yeah, we did the actual, we actually did that experiment. And I think, what do we have, 40, 50 people there? And it did a triangle test with the bottles and versus
nobody
the
could
can.
tell.
Nobody could tell.
Here's the thing: is if we'd have had another option on there for people to say this is the same beer, 80 to 90% of them would have said that. Yep. Because the only reason I chose something on that was because I had to. That I'm like, there's no difference in these. I can't pick out anything at all.
I think that. Ultimately, I think that was the reason that it didn't. I mean, statistically, it worked out.
No, you're exactly right about that.
But anyway.
So I think in answer to this guy's question too, if you're seeing that kind of thing, I would be more concerned about the other effects that the oxygen uptake is having on your beer.
Right.
Use that color change as an indicator that hey, I need to take a look at this. The color change outside of competition is not that big a deal, really, but.
Yeah,
what's
if there's
causing
no flavor
that
change, who cares?
Right. What's causing that color change is going to cause you other problems that are a big deal. So
typically,
if you
the color
see your
change
beer
comes
doing
with
that,
a flavor change.
Well, it was funny, but for me, and I think this is really important to tell people about what oxidation is and what it tastes like, because I think for a long time, for me, I didn't realize what oxidation tasted like, and I guess because
Sherry,
you really
cardboard.
taste it a lot. In a lot of beers.
Right.
No, you're right about that for sure.
Especially like imports and stuff like that.
That have been sitting on the shelf for a long time.
You get
certain people, like
papery
stores in this town that we all stopped at on the way to go to Bluebonnet.
I've always associated skunk with that's
that's not oxidation.
Is that light?
Light struck.
Light struck. Well, that's why I'm on the podcast.
Is this why you're the producer?
The thing about oxidation too is it affects different things. There's oxidation of alcohol. There's oxidation of malt.
Right.
There's oxidation as it affects hops. So there's different ways that oxidation affects it.
I think some people say damp, dank, like cellar, kind of flavors. Some people say that,
I can. That's a different flavor than oxidation.
Yeah,
oxidation.
that's if you look in the BJCP, that's actually how they describe it too. So, papery.
My guess would be that has more to do with the hops dropping out.
Cardboard.
Well, it's the trans 2-nonenal molecule that gets formed, and that's pretty typically cardboard
least favorite
paper
molecule.
It's a pretty bad
I hate
molecule.
that molecule, dude.
But I mean, it's like that's basically like what forms molecularly and how you get that flavor, and so that you can put a taste to that flavor.
What was the term again?
Trans 2-nonenal. That's
Trans-2-nonenal.
that cardboard papery flavor.
Okay.
And
So there's also
sweet
that. There's also
trans-2-nol.
that's mostly malt, a little bit of hop. There's the sweet sherry flavor too. That's mostly malt,
often.
overaged malt.
So would you characterize yourself as trans to nonenal phobic?
Wow, that's true beer nerd jokes right there, dude.
Yes. Well done, Brandon.
I went from the wah 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 to
Good
the
slow
clap.
Yeah.
Slow clap. Recovery. Redemption.
But
honestly though, I would say this, that, and I always heard it described as, cardboardy, papery, and now that I'm aware of what it is, I'm not. Maybe that's the best way to describe it, but it doesn't really taste like that to me. If I put a piece of cardboard in my mouth, I don't know if that would necessarily.
I've had beers that do have a pronounced wet cardboard flavor to them.
Right.
I wouldn't say that every oxidized beer I've had has that characteristic.
It doesn't. And it also it is
like really hoppy beers to me.
Beers too, so, I mean,
really hoppy beers that are oxidized have a way different flavor to me than
I think it gets it also pushes it does something weird with the dark fruity sort of caramely taste, and that's usually with the hops that it really offsets everything that something went wrong here. Raisins suddenly, I don't want this.
And I think that's one of the reasons for the overuse of Special B in a lot of homebrew in doubles and quads and that kind of thing is because people have had really oxidized examples of it, and they think it's supposed to have that real raisiny flavor. Where I associate that with oxidation, I don't particularly care for a strong Special B flavor. Special B should be used like a dash of salt, you can't pick it out. It's just in there. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that use it heavily because I think they're trying to emulate what they've tasted in some old oxidized beers. Right.
Yeah, it depends on the components of the beer. Usually I found in low malt, low alcohol, moderately hop beers, that's when you really get the cardboard paper. When you get the more malty or more hoppy oxidation, that's where it comes off as that sherry sweetness. And then you do get the dark fruit flavors when you get into the high malts, roasted malts and things. Yeah.
But one of the things that you can think of too, though, oxidation is not always a bad thing.
Well, that there's
an old ale is fantastic.
But I call that micro oxidation. It happens at a slow pace over a long period of time. And it's more kind of aging, ripening. You don't get the negative flavors.
Well, the problem is with that is there's a sweet spot. It's the precursor to the negative. If it goes on long enough, it'll become negative. You're trying to catch it at just the right age.
I make it akin to barbecue. You can't make a really awesome brisket at a high temp in a few hours.
Right.
It's low and slow. You got to do it. That's just part of it. Has to be in that temperature range for that long period of time for all those reactions to happen. Same thing with the beer. It has to, lagers have to lager for a certain period of time. The time is part of it. Same thing for micro-oxidation. Has to have those real small amounts for a real long period of time.
It's like you can have an overdone brisket that probably was perfect at one point, but you let it go for an extra 4 or 5 hours and it's not good anymore.
You can't. Well, that
tough as old boots. Sounds like every brisket I've ever cooked.
You can cook a meal. You can cook a meat to temperature, hot and fast in a short period of time, or long and slow, and it gets to the temperature. Those two things are going to taste completely different. It's the exact same thing for beer.
It's like the aging of beers. I remember picking up Old Tom or whatever. It's like an old ale. I had one from 95 one time. I feel like I gave one to you well back, but it's like I picked it up in Colorado. This is years ago, and think, I'll try this, And it felt like it was good, but 1995 and late 2000, mid to late.
Well, think about all those quads that we had.
Well, think about if you open up a beer, dark, strong malty beer that would be great for aging. Just for example, you sit on a table, it's going to oxidize really quickly.
Yeah.
Is it going to taste very good? Probably not so much. You let it sit in the bottle for an extended period of time and let it micro-oxidate over a long period of time, and you open it, it's going to taste awesome. Even though if it had the same level of oxidation according to spectrophotometer or something, the way it happened changes how you perceive it,
and that's why temperature is so important too.
Well, and we had those Belgian quads that I picked up. What was they? Were they 2011, 12, and 13?
There's a vast variance in those beers.
And some of them were great, and some
three
of them were not.
Horrible.
No, most of them were terrible.
Yeah, bad.
They were all
drank
some of them were great though. There was what was it? The Padres beer.
Yeah,
that we drank.
That was
from
different.
Lost.
That was a different
Yeah,
episode.
And
that was old.
That was like 11 years old or something like that.
It was 10 years old, I think.
10 years old, yeah, and it was good.
Yeah,
I thought.
Well, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. If
good
those
packaging,
we
process
may.
Too. I mean,
I would be willing to bet you money. Those ones I picked up, those three philosophers, they were sitting on a shelf. If they would have been in a cooler the whole time, they probably would have tasted completely different.
Or even at like 50 degrees.
Yeah.
As opposed to whatever.
Store
that's
temp.
that liquor store over on Sylvania or something like that, right? It's probably 85 degrees in there 3 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Domestic.
Yeah.
no, that's McCart.
No, that's the south side.
They don't have good beer there, just FYI.
Yeah. So do we
anyway.
hit a break or?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great time. And we'll come back. We'll drink those saisons and see if we can.
Yeah.
Maybe
They should be
cook-
nice and cool. But
Maybe they may be frozen.
they're frozen.
Yeah.
They're saisonsicles.
We may need to.
I like that.
But we may need to. I think it would be nice to kind of talk about them and then go over the score sheets again.
Right.
Give people some insight to maybe what people are talking about, because I think this is something that a lot of people are confused about when they send stuff.
Oh my God.
When they send stuff to competition and then they get the score sheets back. It's always, I think it's a great idea to get your beers if you still have some, drink them and taste them when you're looking at the score sheets, and maybe you can say, well, you may be pissed off.
You need
at
an
first.
example for when it was judged to know what it tastes like when it was
right.
judged.
But
I think you should sit down with a friend and fill out a score sheet too.
Keep
Yeah.
it
Really.
critical.
If you really
I buy
wanna-
beer.
Yeah, I mean, you can just
Pull that with your friends.
There's a lot of times I've done that, and there's points.
Yeah.
that,
All right,
that-
Zach.
that-
Pull your nut sacks
Yeah,
out,
we're
sit
fine.
down, judge your beer, and just have some.
But
guideline,
anyway,
That's
you know?
the
we'll
second
be
segment.
right back. Fuck, those things are gonna be.
Of course, there is.
No, they're not frozen.
Hey, did you try this?
Greg and I drank the other day.
Woo! Those are old.
Do you like it?
That's like a year, 4
an
months,
Imperial
5 months
honey
old
lager.
at least.
Okay.
That was
It's a
packaged
lager. It's got 3 pounds of honey in it.
2016.
30903.
But it was like in 80 something got down to 1008.
There's a
Man,
what was
the
the
honey
batch
flavor
number?
really carried through.
30903.
This is a BYO recipe from some brewery or whatever.
on the neck.
That's why I was like, it's the honey. But it was also 3470 because it's the yeast cake from the German ale.